First thing my wife told me is not to even apply, and once I got selected, she said, don't join. My predecessors, two of them had gone to jail. When Infosys IPO came, it failed. Some of these companies are tomorrow's Infosys.
Last year, NSE reported nearly $1 billion USD in profits. Why would you want to do an IPO?
IPO is not a wrong thing to do. There was a company called Hyundai. It took away $3.3 billion, right, to Korea. Do you think it's an international company? Probably it is not.
So how crisis-proof is really the system?
Only NSE cannot go down because it's going to be a national disaster, but UPI went down 4 times in last 1 month alone. Of course, Financial Times is known for its propaganda in behalf of China.
Why is that? That recognition is important to grow globally.
It's the other way around. It's your insecurity which makes you think that somebody has to give you importance.
What's your sales pitch for India to global investors? When can we expect the IPO to hit the markets? Welcome to the Boardroom. We are back with another power-packed episode on this series. And by now, you know the drill. 21 questions and 90 seconds to answer each. Because on this stage, we just don't talk business, we mean business. From revolutionizing India's financial markets to reshaping the future of investing, Ashish Chauhan is not just the CEO of the National Stock Exchange, he is the architect of a new era who built the backbone of India's digital trading platforms. With decades of leadership from the Bombay Stock Exchange to the National Stock Exchange, he is driven by innovation, precision, and purpose. Mr. Chauhan, lovely to have you in the Boardroom. Thank you very much for joining us on the show.
Thank you.
All right, so this interview setting has one special rule, which is we're going to take 21 questions and give you 90 seconds to give your best answer for each of the questions, right? You have a timer here to give you the countdown. So are you ready for this format?
Absolutely.
Ready to go?
Yes.
Okay. Question 1 then. You were one of the founding members of the NSE in 1992. In 2003, you joined the Reliance Group and then joined BSE in 2009, only to come back and lead the National Stock Exchange in 2022. What made you make the switch? Your time starts now.
Anyway, as an employee, you move from place to place. I tried, when I left original NSE in 2000, I started on my own, funded by Reliance, then pretty much I was there till 2009. But then BSE took over a company from my wife, and because my wife used to own those shares. And they put a condition that I would work with them for a year for them to pay her the money. So that's how I kind of went there to work for a year, but remained there for 13 years, 10 years as CEO. And then there were issues at NSE. I was also retiring from BSE because there is a condition or there is a regulation which says you can work only maximum 2 terms of 5 years each, that is 10 years as CEO. That's how I was retiring from BSE, and NSE kind of selected me, so I came to do a job here.
Question 2. Mr. Chauhan, what has been, to your mind, the greatest contribution you've made to NSE since you took over?
Again, 92 to 2000, I did the original technology, the satellite telecom, when India did not even have a good working telephone lines. We created that satellite telecom framework. The screen-based trading I created, or Nifty index, or the derivatives, or even NSE's building. And so, of course, whatever work comes your way as an employee, you need to do. And in 2022, when I joined back, at that time NSE was going through a lot of crisis in terms of the co-location scandals and the invisible yogi and other things. And so the crisis of confidence, especially in the minds of the regulators, the minds of the policymakers in Delhi, and of course in public mind, many people thought that NSE may not be able to survive. That kind of crisis were there. And so to just bring it to a level where now it's pretty much the largest exchange in the world. Yeah. I think, again, NSE had inherent strength, but it's just managing it to ensure that you go there.
What was your first thought when you made the decision to join back?
First,
especially surrounded by that scandal.
Yeah, first thing my wife told me is not to even apply. And once I got selected, she said, don't join. And my sister
Why
called
is that?
Because my predecessors, 2 of them had gone to jail. And so naturally, you don't want to be there, right? Especially when you don't need money.
But it could be a great challenge.
And that's why in a way, I had to convince my wife, saying, okay, this is a challenge and this is a public service which I need to do. So that's how sort of I went there. And of course, there were issues on the public perception, but there were issues on the organizational structure or the entire technology space and many other things. And so it cannot be solved on one day. When you're sitting outside, even outside for 22 years, you don't know the innards of the company.
Were you nervous?
That's why,
were you doubtful?
No, naturally, I'm nervous every day. So
don't look it.
Yeah, that's a part of that game where you have to look confident. But naturally, if you're a good, humble person, probably you end up being very sincere about what you do, and that is what is required in this kind of activities.
How would you rate yourself in your tenure thus far at the NSE?
No, NSE has done well. I don't want to rate, but the fact is it's for people to figure out. The profits have increased, the volumes have increased, the number of participants have increased phenomenally. Today we have 11 crore participants. Only 28 pin codes out of some 19,400 pin codes in India don't have NSE investor, and out of that 28, probably 25 are airports where you can't do KYC. Yeah. So effectively, literally NSE has spread far and wide, and good thing is that NSE has been able to withstand all that changes, because NSE is like a large ship, right? If you try to move it and change the directions like a rickshaw, it can create a problem, right? But fortunately, we have still been able to do that over last 3 years, and I think that is commendable, and it's a sort of credit to the NSE's employees, but also to all the stockbrokers who have kind of worked together, because any change we do affects them in a different way and they have to be ready and so on. And the changes were coming like in rapid succession, literally every week. And then many times we were taking U-turns because the new regulations and all. And so for me, it has been a very tumultuous journey, but in some ways, when I look back, it has been satisfactory.
Satisfactory, yeah. And it's important to have a strong exchange, especially when people are talking about India being the preferred investment destination around the world. I'll take my next question, which is the last few years have seen a major IPO boom in India. You know, in FY23, we saw 164 IPOs. In FY24, we saw 272 IPOs. In FY25, we saw 318 IPOs. Is this a good thing or a reason to worry?
And there are too many companies which need funding. And despite whatever we say, the private equity or venture capital or angel funding is available to probably 1 in 10,000 entrepreneurs. The rest of the entrepreneurs have to come. And most of the IPOs basically came in SME segment, which is small and medium sector enterprises, which from small IT companies to even a textile trading company or a textile mill in Surat. And so for me, those small companies are the future of India, and they don't get the funding from nobody. If they go to bank, they are told that your debt equity ratio is so much, so you need to bring so much equity, but who will give them? And they go to everyone who are advertised in newspapers, and nobody gives them any funding. So they have to get it, and today with 11 crore investors, India is now willing to fund its entrepreneurs. That kind of trust has been built, and for me, the exchange is basically a trust manufacturing company for the country, right? It trust of its investor in its entrepreneurs, right? And that's what is telling you. At the same time, if you look at the other way around, Singapore is running a 30-year low on the listed companies. People are leaving. Those companies are delisting from those countries. Europe, literally companies are delisting. Even UK is running at 20-year low on listed companies. India is in a sweet position because it's also on the growth path.
I'll take my next question. Market regulator SEBI, of course, has tightened norms on the processing of these small IPOs. What do you make of it?
No, it should be done. See, when there is a euphoria, you don't want fly-by-night people to come in. And so slowly all of us keep on tightening our regulations. But it also shows you the momentum, the growth momentum of India, the entrepreneurship that is oozing out from across the country, and that cannot be denied. Nor, for me, the concept of regulations or concept of policy making is to basically direct good things into becoming larger, better for the public cause. And this is basically what are these small companies. Some of them will become large. When Infosys IPO came, it failed. And then it created 5 lakh jobs, which are high paying, right? Some of these companies are tomorrow's Infosys, right? Why would we want and grudge them that money, and many of them will fail because they're small companies, right? They don't have that business model. But if they are compliant, they have a way to grow. Like I would say, we have now around 580 companies listed on NSE from SME segment. Almost 20-22% people have gone to main board. They've become large enough.
Question 5, Mr. Chauhan. As someone who has seen hundreds of companies come to the IPO market, doing an IPO is almost seen as a status symbol by many startups. And so how do you weigh the pros and cons of doing an IPO? What would be, to your mind, the real motivation to actually go out there and decide to do an initial public offer? What should be the real motivation by a company to decide to do an IPO?
So if you have plans to grow, you don't have the capital, and you are confident of your growth, which is going to be 10x, 100x, you should come for IPO, because you are able to convert your income into wealth, but also you're going to get that capital, which will also allow you to borrow more loans to create the dream that you want to create, right? And for me, it allows you succession planning. It allows you to also hire more qualified employees by giving stock options. It allows you to even purchase other companies using your stocks. And so in a way, it's a currency of sorts, but it also brings a lot of responsibility, a lot of answering to do with every type of accountability, responsibility, which is of a different level. So many people tell me that, boss, I don't respond, or I don't answer to my wife. Why would I answer to your shareholders? That's why I don't want to list. And I said, then probably you are not the right person.
But also misguided ambition, right? Because a lot of startups on day one, they may not have set up their office, but they're already making IPO plans.
The other way around is also true. So I tell them that what is the harm in answering to your wife, right? And to others also. I mean, if they have a legitimate question, it will also improve your own thinking, right? And so for me, some of them may try to come to the market. Some of them may not have that kind of great intentions. But broadly speaking, it's like going on the road, right? If you don't allow people to come on the road, then the right people will not be able to come on the road, but wrong people might actually be able to come on the road. So might as well allow most people who are reasonable, who fit into those criteria of the listings, do the listings. And naturally, they have to market themselves well, and people have to actually buy those stories to invest.
Next question, Mr. Chauhan. To your own IPO experience, the market is talking about NSE's valuation being anywhere between $55-56 billion. When can we expect the IPO to hit the markets?
No, we have, of course, 2016 onwards, NSE has tried to become a listed firm. Now we are in 25. Of course, there are correspondence between us and the regulators, and we have applied for no objection certificate even as recently again in April 25. So as and when the no objection certificate comes, then we file, we prepare the RHP and then file. And so it's a longish process, but it will start only if we get the no objection certificate from the regulator.
What is holding that up?
Basically, there are issues they have raised, and we have replied to them. Now we are awaiting their feedback.
Because there's some market talk that maybe the IPO would get delayed, which was, by the way, touted as one of the biggest IPOs for 2025, much awaited, might get delayed by 2 years.
It remains to be seen. For me, people have their opinions, people have ability to read things which, in a way, what is not written, and sometimes they read between the lines, but above and beyond the lines. So that is fine.
Question 7, Mr. Chauhan. Last year, NSE reported nearly $1 billion USD in profits. Why would you want to do an IPO? How does it help?
No, I have now 67,000 odd investors. Last year, I had probably a few thousand. By even 2 months back, I had 20,000. And so I have many investors. And naturally, IPO is not a wrong thing to do. A listed firm brings more transparency in its working, becomes more regulated, and many things which regulators cannot even find, investors are able to find, right? So effectively, it brings a lot of transparency. And for me, transparency is the best disinfectant. Of course, it creates wealth for the country. It gives exit to shareholders. Some of them are PSUs. In fact, PSUs own almost 31.2% of NSE, which is at current whatever prices you said.
But how important is profitability as a marker to decide on whether or not to go to the markets?
See, for me, an organization like a stock exchange are unique in their own way. They are called market infrastructure institutions. Their main function in India is also to act as regulators in addition to being service providers and doing a good job as a market regulator might bring you profits, but profits are not the motive with which you run exchanges or depositories or clearing corporations.
Question 8, Mr. Chauhan. Do you believe that had you continued at the NSE uninterrupted, the exchange might have already launched its IPO by now and achieved more significant technological advances?
That's a hypothetical question. See, idea is life takes you, and this is what I call path-dependent disequilibrium. You take a path and it is never going to come back. You can't do U-turns in life, right? When you
can always reflect.
So you can reflect, but idea is that what could have been is a problem for many people from moving forward. I don't look back in that way. I look back in terms of learning from what could have happened, and then of course to make life better for future. If India has to grow, when NSE started in '94, total market capitalization was 4 lakh crore rupees or less.
Yeah.
I think 3,80,000 crore. Today it's 400 lakh crore, 100 times more, right? And if India has to grow 10x, 20x in next 30, 40 years, it'll grow on the back of NSE. That is how important NSE is. And that's where, for me, it's a national treasure, and it needs to be sort of nurtured and ensured that it continues to serve that purpose of manufacturing and enhancing the trust of all the investors in the country.
Mr. Chauhan, question 9. The stock of Bombay Stock Exchange has gone up 5,000% in the last 5 years. Your reaction?
Now, good, sometimes your work gets appreciated after you leave. And so why not? So for me, it's a very interesting situation when a company's share prices go up 50 times.
No FOMO feeling, fear of missing out?
No, for me, I have basically been part of...
Because for some of those years, like you said, you were at the helm managing the Bombay Stock Exchange.
13 years, right? And for me, that's how... And when I was there, it was doing very well. And so I'm glad that it's doing well. And sometimes when your company's prices go up 50 times, and when you say we need level playing field, it looks very much like a person who is basically asking additional benefits in the guise of level playing field. While the same people who were working for, say, another exchange like NSE, 22 exchanges died, the same people never bothered about level playing field. Even today also, which exchange in the country requires level playing field? A country, in an exchange which makes 1,000 crore profits a year, do you think it requires level playing field? MSCI or NCDEX, which have no volumes, they might require level playing. If they talk about it, it's fine. But we are having a unique situation where people are tom-tomming about all these things. It's a little funny thing. But 50 times I did not realize that it's such a sort of a non-level playing field in that sense.
Question 10, Mr. Chauhan. By when do you foresee NSE becoming a preferred listing destination for international companies in the near future?
See, if you look at it, last year, there was a company called Hyundai. It took away $3.3 billion, right, to Korea. Yeah. Do you think it's an international company? Probably it is not, because it's India listed, right? And India incorporated the Indian entity. Similarly, there was a company called Carraro. It is an Italian company's Indian subsidiary. And there are many companies in India today listed where the market capitalization of those companies are literally 50, 60, 80, 90% of their parents' market capitalization who are staying abroad. And so for me, India has always been like this. It has welcomed foreign companies, and it has also allowed many foreign promoters or foreign entities to take away their profit, which is not true with China. China, you go there, it's a Hotel California, you can't leave, right? India has been very open, and that because China marketed so well over 30 years, people didn't figure out. Now when they want to leave, China is not allowing. India did not market itself well, but had a great methodology to have people come in and go out with their profits if they make. And today people are realizing abroad also that India is a much better country to do business in. And I think many more companies will come. At the same time, India is perennially capital starved. So it's possible that some companies may come, but even in Hyundai, 80% of the subscription came from abroad and went abroad, right? So effectively, it's a platform which we provide for international capital to invest in international companies, but registered in India.
But is that fair for foreign companies to make so much money in India and take it back home?
Again, they have added value. That's why there are many foreign
But
companies.
shouldn't Indian investors be benefiting from that rise?
They are going to benefit now when they invest, right?
Halfway there, Mr. Chauhan. Question 11 for you. What do you think would make India more attractive for foreign businesses and investors? We've seen companies like Grow, PhonePe, Pine Labs, Meesho, Razorpay, right? They are in the process of redomiciling themselves. We're looking at homecoming IPOs. So what can India do to attract more foreign businesses and investors?
No, I think foreign businesses are getting attracted due to the young population, technology savvy population, and most of the wealth gets created by young people, right? And of course, technology. And that's where you see Apple has come and even Micron is coming. And I mean, India is fortunate to have such young population, which is technology savvy, and the talent which is there. So for me, I have no worries on India's growth in that sense. But of course, if you can streamline, and I think you had two questions under one. The companies which had been structured outside, which were primarily catering to Indian markets, like PhonePe or others, they were there because they're venture capitalists and other people had told them that Singapore or other jurisdiction has less taxes. In last 3 years, actually, India has got much nicer taxes or much lower taxes on capital gains and other things compared to what they would get in Singapore. And Singapore doesn't have a listed market actually. So if they go to US, probably they will not get the same price earnings which they receive in India, because India is a growth market, right? And so many of them are coming back because they have seen their peers which were not structured abroad have got easily listed, they have got great pricing, and that's where they are coming back. It's possible that the same people or similar people, when they start getting better pricing outside, they will run away, which is what the life is all about, right? So in some ways, our tax structures, our ways of doing things have become much more improved now, and that's where many more people will continue to come.
Question 12. How do you assess the long-term impact of Trump's tariff policies on the global capital markets, and how do you see that playing out from what we've seen recently?
In a way, why did we come to the place where we came, right? It's because America in 1988 the world became unipolar, where America was numero uno. And then people took advantage of America. It was a very rich country. It used to not bother about who runs WTO or who runs UN, but finally their money was largely being used, IMF, World Bank, and this and that. And then after 30, 40 years of that, they realized that now they have become poor, other people have become richer, and they want to now ask you that, boss, if I do something for you, what will you do for me in return? And then everyone is saying, no, it's our birthright to take advantage from you, but it's not your duty to always not ask us questions. If you're asking us, you are unfair and we'll oppose you and those kind of things. And people who are taking advantage of everyone are saying, no, you have to be with us or with them. That is China, basically. Yeah. And for me, so the world is going to now again go back to US, which is less powerful, less rich compared to what it was in, say, 1988. But it's still the only buyer from the world. And India was on the wrong side of history for probably 70 out of 78 years of its independence. We were sitting with people who did not give us anything. Instead, we also went in a wrong direction. Today, we are with US, our government is working with US to create better environment where their businesses can come, set up shops here. Our people can do faster, better businesses with those people, America, which is actually the buyer, literally the only buyer in the world, okay? And that's where for me, today, whatever happens to the world, India is in a very sweet spot. And today, that unipolar world is becoming multipolar. And in 88, we were nobodies. Today, in 25, we are pretty much one of the top 4 leaders of the world, right? So we are sitting at the table.
Question 13, Mr. Chauhan. How would India stand to benefit in the current global economic turmoil? You answered part of that in the previous question, but I do want to drill it in a bit more in terms of just understanding India's position in a world where there's so much debate about US exceptionalism.
People were saying US exceptionalism. It was the other way around. They were all basically taking advantage of US, and now that US has woken up, they are feeling very uncomfortable. India was never in that privileged position to take advantage of anyone, right? People were taking advantage of India. And so, in some ways, India has now come to a level where it has a demographics, which is young. It is a technology-oriented demographic, so it's able to produce many things. And it's a demand from that young people, which is not there in, if you look at, say, Japan, it's old. You don't get demand from old people. So effectively, for me, India is literally the future of the world as far as the demand, technology, the new wealth that is going to be created. And if you go with the right mindset of people who are also technology savvy, the countries which are open to newer ideas, it's not that it happens because you do something, but it also because of circumstances. And what is called prarabdha, I think our time is coming.
Or is already here?
We are there.
Question 14 is about the trade war between the US and China. Do you think India can emerge a winner in this trade war, and how so?
4 years back, during COVID time, there was a full-page article in Financial Times, not once but twice in a month's period, I recall, that the Chinese supply chain is so efficient and so out of this world that no other country will be able to manufacture Apple iPhones because they require some huge knowledge and information and supply chain and integration and all that in next 50 years. And today, India is actually producing 15-20% of all iPhones, right, in 3 years' time. And that tells you many, many things that, of course, Financial Times is known for its propaganda in behalf of China, but that is besides the point. Fact is, India has been able to do it. Tells you that it has people who are able to grasp things. It has government which is able to provide you logistics support and roads and ports and infrastructure, the electricity that is required and things like that.
I want to understand how high-end and technologically advanced would those chips be?
If you want to go for a journey of 10,000 kilometers, how do you start that? You have to make the first step, right? But if you say, no, I have to go on the 10,000 kilometer only, you have to start there, right? We have started. And we have gone far ahead, 15% or 20% of Apple iPhone. For us, it looks like a phone, but it's supposed to be sort of God's gift. Financial Times mentioned that twice in full pages, right? That nobody can make it and you made it. And that is not only for, now servers are being made, the laptops are being made, and they are being exported also, not only in India. And for me, that's why, you are now doing very well in toys. But we consider toys as low tech, right? But China started with low tech toys, the fluffy ones, not even the electronic
Stuffed
ones,
toys.
right? Stuffed toys, right? So for me, they started and then went value chain higher up. We have also started somewhere in the middle, not very low, but we have climbed up the value chain much faster than I thought we would be. And so for me, similarly, chip companies, the electronic chips companies like Micron and all, they're like, I was talking to somebody yesterday. They said at least 10 proposals have been approved, and so many more chip companies are going to, in fact, Micron might start manufacturing first set of chips this year itself. We have been able to overcome all that and come to this stage is a phenomenal achievement.
Question 15, Mr. Chauhan. Recently, of course, there's been much talk about the relationship between the market regulator and these exchanges, because you're talking about profitability, you're talking about growth opportunities for a business like a stock exchange. How would you describe the relationship between SEBI and exchanges such as yourself?
Usually the relationships are very cordial. And they have to
keep hearing about fines on exchanges.
Yeah, so fines is like exchanges fine their brokers also, the companies also. That doesn't mean relationships are not cordial. It's just that you have some infraction which is basically not fulfilling a particular criteria for which there is a specified fine. For example, you are going through, when you are traveling on the road and you cross a red signal and there is a fine of 2,000 rupees which comes to your mobile straight away saying now 2,000 rupees is cut. Yeah. So for me, you can say that why did the BMC commissioner, Bombay Municipal Commissioner, fine you? And that's why you don't have a great relationship. It's possible that you are going to his house for dinner and you were fined for, and so for me, these are all sort of unrelated activities we try to correlate unnecessarily.
Right. Question 16, Mr. Chauhan. Retail investors often fall prey to misinformation. And we're talking about the rise of the retail investor in India, where financialization of savings is getting more participation from local investors into the markets, whether it's via mutual funds or whether it's via direct trading. through brokerage platforms. And so how is the National Stock Exchange trying to protect investors, one, and also what is it doing with regards to financial literacy?
We recently took up a sort of an opportunity to train 15,000 college-going students in the state of Uttarakhand on finance. And we also go to self-help groups across India of women, but we don't tell them how to trade in stocks. We tell them how to plan your budget, when you have to borrow, where to borrow it from, and how to calculate
financial planning, yeah.
And how to calculate interest rate, because sometimes you think you are borrowing 98 rupees and giving 100 rupees back in the evening. You're actually giving a very large annual interest, because 2 rupees or 2% a day, 98 to 100 doesn't look big.
Yeah.
But 2% a day on a 365 is pretty much 1300 plus percentage.
Indeed.
Right? And so those are the things we sort of layer, and it's that everyone doesn't have to invest in stock markets, right? When they reach a level, and everyone doesn't have to invest all their money in stock markets.
How much money do you think on an average should the average person invest in the stock market?
I mean, I don't invest personally because I'm not allowed to, except in mutual funds. But my framework has always been, which I teach also, that you should invest so much that even if it goes away, you should have good night's sleep.
How much is that so much? Out of 100 rupees?
Suppose you have 100 rupees for investment, 10-15% or 10-15 rupees is what I would say allocate to equities, and not borrow and then put 200 rupees, right? So that's where many people kind of, in the heat of the moment, they do that, and that's absolutely, it's possible that you may make money and people may say that you are a hero, but yeah. I don't sort of think that a person with responsibility should be able to do that.
Sure. Question 17. Since we are talking about speculation in the market or speculative trades in the market, NSE has 80% market share when it comes to derivative volumes, which is futures and options. And there's concern about the kind of speculation that we are seeing by way of participation, especially from the youth in the market, growing. Does this near monopoly position in the derivatives market not pose a systemic risk to India's financial markets in case of a tech failure or a crisis? So how crisis-proof is really the system?
In a sense, nobody can give you surety that a technology which is so complex, and in such systems which are like hundreds and millions of components and different softwares working together, will work perfectly every day. In last 2 months alone, some 4 exchanges in the world had to stop trading for a period of minimum 2-3 hours to even a day. And that's a common thing, although we have been made to believe that only NSE cannot go down because it's going to be a national disaster. But UPI went down 4 times in last 1 month alone, right? And so for me, we get unduly large expectations, which of course NSE should try to fulfill, but that is not the issue. If this was the case, what you are saying about concentration, how on earth Japan has only 1 exchange?
Yeah.
How on earth 6 or 7 European countries have only 1 exchange put together? So for me, how is it that we are expecting everyone to trade, and at the same time, same people don't want you to trade 24 hours?
Okay, fair enough. Mr. Chauhan, let's talk about your personal leadership journey as well. In the last couple of questions, we are drawing towards the end. Next question is question 18. You were the CEO of Mumbai Indians during its formative years, and the franchise, of course, has won 5 IPO trophies since then. What strategies did you implement to make this team so successful?
It's always good to take credit for things which you have not done, but in some ways,
you did do something.
Yeah, you may have done something, but the team wins. You are only an administrator. Your job is not to play, right? Broadly, you have to provide the stadium and clean toilets and ticketing and entry and exit easily, and of course the advertisements, and make money out of sales. And in addition to ensuring that those people get to travel easy, but playing they have to do, right? So for me, it's a business on one side, it's what I call a sports on the other side. And how do you manage that in terms of the...
but when you're managing any team, leadership skills are most critical. So what were the skills that you deployed to get the team going, essentially?
It means since childhood, I never thought I was important. And I still think I am not important.
That's very humble of you.
And so for me, many people think that if your subordinate is earning more than you, then you are not worth it, right? You should not do that job. But in that Mumbai Indians, everyone, all the boys who were playing and who were not also playing were also earning more than me, and I was a CEO, right? So in a way, you have to do your job because it's not only making money that is important, but you need to be able to see things in different perspective, create different solutions, be more resourceful. And somewhere on the line, even if you don't get paid that year, later on you get paid. But even if you don't get paid
later on,
you don't. That's why I'm saying. If I don't get paid later on, the knowledge and wisdom you get remains with you, right?
Just curious, what was the motivation then? If money is not your motivation, your primary motivation, what is the motivation to take up projects like these?
No, when I was very young, like 10, 12 years old, I wanted to be a monk. Then I got into IIT at age 17. So my dream of becoming monk went away. But because you kind of you were always thinking about it, which I still do. And in a way, you don't want that situation where money is the only motive, right? And that keeps you grounded, saying this is the work, somebody has to do it. If that guy cannot do it, you have to do it, right? So you are like a backup to most people. At the same time, you are also giving instructions, you are planning, but in case that person doesn't come on that day, you have to stand with your camera. And that is what the job of a leader is, that you know most of the things little bit, but when it comes to the need, you are one of the workers, right? That is what my life has been all about.
Question 19, Mr. Chauhan. You actively represent India at various international conferences and forums. What's your sales pitch for India to global investors?
India has the demographics, India has the demand, India has technology, and without your knowledge, we run the world. Because if you want your telecom service in your country, whether it's Canada, US, Europe, most probably the back office is in India. If you want your fast food, you go to McDonald's and you give order to the takeaway desk and go the other side, most probably that takeaway call was taken in Bangalore. Similarly, your hospitals or your derivatives pricing, wherever you are, whatever you are, India is inside, right? Whether you are making OpenAI or Google Gemini, work is done in India, right?
Why doesn't India get its due then on all these issues?
See, for me, India is getting up the curve.
Do you think the world is recognizing India and its efforts?
For me, even if the world doesn't recognize, today you are like $4.5 trillion economy, right? You are pretty much fourth largest and you might become third largest in next year or so. Why do you think it's happening? Whether world recognizes or not, that is telling the world. And if they don't recognize, it's not a problem because
that recognition is important for India's power and influence to grow globally.
It's the other way around. Your power and influence will grow out of your own behavior and your maturity. It is not because somebody has to give you importance. It's your insecurity which makes you think that somebody has to give you importance. You are important and you will do what is correct.
Self-value.
And also you will do what is correct. Then nobody gives you importance, but you are doing what is correct, like what we are doing today in Ukraine or anywhere else. People are appreciating India because India is doing what is correct. And for me, if you remain steadfast on that path of dharma, that is duty. Not dharma is a religion, but in India, dharma is actually
duty.
Doing your duty. If you continue to do duty correctly, not with interest, whether people actually praise you or not is not relevant. You have to do what is correct.
Question 20, Mr. Chauhan. Looking back at your career, which has been such an illustrious career, what's been your top learning in building big businesses? Everything starts small and then you need to work extremely hard, diligently, every day. There is no respite, right? It's a 24/7/365 situation in life. And if you want work-life balance, you can still sometime have that. But if you want to do anything which is large, be alert, be sincere, be humble, be nimble. And of course, you need to have a large heart. A lot of setbacks come your way when you move on. Once in South Africa in the second IPL season, me and Sachin Tendulkar were sitting. He's 5 years younger to me. And so I said, boss, when you go to the field, how do you focus? Because there are like
tens of thousands of people, and your child is ill and your wife is screaming. And how do you go and play that 140 kilometers or 150 kilometers per hour ball? He said, boss, it doesn't matter how many centuries you made previously. That next ball is the only one that counts, right? And so that is the essence of life, that what is coming next, you have to treat it with utmost respect.
Last question, Mr. Chauhan. Following the success of the first book on you, which was Sitha Pragya Part 1, you're now coming out and launching Sitha Pragya Part 2, which is a book based on your life, your career. Could you tell us more about that?
Sitha Pragya is a word in Gita, which is basically about spiritual detachment from the world, right? And so that is where this story kind of comes back. But that doesn't mean it's something which I have narrated. It's his imagination about how I live is what that story is all about.
But why were you not on board with the idea of this book?
No, I think my life is like any other millions of Indians who have tried to
You could be
do
an
something.
inspiration to a lot of the youth out there, right? Trying to find direction and obviously some sort of breakthrough in life.
For me, yes, but now that it's written and people come back and say, no, it's nice and we have learnt a lot, and I still can't believe that my life somebody can write a book on.
But what would you think, as we wrap up this interview, Mr. Chauhan, what would you think is the biggest takeaway from your life story, from your career, from your life's journey, that people can perhaps capture and read more about in this book?
Broadly speaking, how to be humble in your life without many expectations from life, live with very little needs, and try to work for the society.
Well, you've had a great, illustrious career, sir. Thank you very much, Mr. Chauhan, for joining us on this edition of The Boardroom. Thank you very much for your time.